Question 1. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a critical customer-facing application hosted on Oracle Cloud infrastructure is experiencing intermittent performance degradation, manifesting as slow response times and timeouts. Stakeholders are concerned about the impact on customer satisfaction and potential revenue loss. The application architecture involves multiple tiers deployed across different OCI compute instances within a virtual cloud network, VCN. Initial investigations suggest network latency might be a contributing factor. Which of the following approaches best addresses the root cause of this performance issue from an architectural perspective, considering OCI best practices and the need for a robust, secure, and efficient solution? Option A. Immediately escalate the issue to the application development team to rewrite inefficient code modules, assuming the network infrastructure is functioning optimally. Option B. Analyze OCI network visualizer data and VCN flow logs to identify any unusual traffic patterns, excessive packet loss, or high latency between application tiers and the database. Subsequently, review and optimize VCN route tables, security lists, and network address translation, NAT, gateway configurations to ensure efficient and secure communication paths. Option C. Propose a migration of the entire application to a different OCI region to leverage potentially better network peering arrangements, without first performing detailed network diagnostics in the current region. Option D. Increase the bandwidth allocated to all compute instances involved in the application by default, without specific analysis of traffic volume or communication bottlenecks. The correct answer is B. Analyze OCI network visualizer data and VCN flow logs to identify any unusual traffic patterns, excessive packet loss, or high latency between application tiers and the database. Subsequently, review and optimize VCN route tables, security lists, and network address translation, NAT, gateway configurations to ensure efficient and secure communication paths. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture where a critical business application's performance is degrading due to network latency. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause within a complex, multi-component Oracle Cloud infrastructure, OCI, environment and implementing a solution that balances performance, cost, and security, all while adhering to OCI best practices and the specific requirements of the 1Z0-1072-22 exam syllabus. The stakeholder perspective is crucial, as different teams, e.g., development, operations, security, may have competing priorities. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation of network connectivity and latency between the application tiers and the database. This includes examining OCI networking constructs like virtual cloud networks, VCN, subnets, route tables, security lists, and network address translation, NAT, gateways. It also necessitates understanding the application's communication patterns and potential bottlenecks. Leveraging OCI's built-in monitoring and logging tools, e.g., OCI Network Visualizer, VCN flow logs, OCI monitoring, is paramount for gathering diagnostic data. The solution should focus on optimizing network paths, potentially by ensuring resources are in the same availability domain or region, or by configuring appropriate network routing and security rules. This aligns with OCI architectural best practices for performance and reliability, ensuring that the chosen solution is technically sound and addresses the observed issue without introducing new risks. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately assume the issue is with the application code or database performance without first thoroughly investigating the network layer. This is a failure of systematic troubleshooting and can lead to wasted effort and resources on the wrong problem. Ethically, it's unprofessional to jump to conclusions without evidence, potentially delaying a critical fix for the business. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a broad, unvalidated network change, such as opening all security list ports, without understanding the specific communication requirements. This is a significant security risk and a violation of the principle of least privilege, which is a fundamental tenet of secure cloud architecture. It also fails to demonstrate a deep understanding of OCI networking security controls. A third incorrect approach would be to propose a costly solution, like migrating to a different region or a more expensive compute instance, without first exhausting all optimization possibilities, within the existing OCI network configuration. This demonstrates a lack of cost consciousness and an inability to leverage the full capabilities of the current OCI deployment, which is a key aspect of effective cloud architecture. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, evidence-based approach to troubleshooting. This involves 1. Understanding the reported problem and its business impact. 2. Gathering relevant data using OCI's monitoring and logging tools. 3. Formulating hypotheses based on the data. 4. Testing hypotheses systematically, starting with the most likely causes. 5. Implementing solutions that are targeted, secure, cost-effective, and aligned with OCI best practices. 6. Validating the solution and monitoring for recurrence. In this scenario, the focus must be on the network layer as indicated by the symptoms of latency. Question 2. Benchmark analysis indicates that a client is eager to deploy a new application on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, with minimal delay and has expressed a preference for services that appear simpler to configure, even if it means a less granular approach to access control and security. As an Oracle Cloud Infrastructure 2022 Architect Associate, what is the most appropriate approach to address this client's request while ensuring a secure and compliant deployment within the OCI framework? Option A. Conduct a detailed assessment of the application's security and compliance requirements, then design a solution leveraging OCI Identity and Access Management, (IAM), for granular access control, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Vault for secrets management, and security zones to enforce security policies, educating the client on the long-term benefits of this robust approach. Option B. Prioritize the client's desire for rapid deployment by utilizing services with the most straightforward initial setup, even if it means relying on default security settings and broader access permissions to expedite the process. Option C. Implement the application using shared administrative credentials and direct API key access for all users to simplify management and reduce the initial configuration overhead. Option D. Select OCI services based solely on their perceived ease of use and lowest initial cost, without a deep dive into their specific security features or compliance implications for the client's workload. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed assessment of the application's security and compliance requirements, then design a solution leveraging OCI Identity and Access Management, (IAM), for granular access control, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Vault for secrets management, and security zones to enforce security policies, educating the client on the long-term benefits of this robust approach. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture where a client, driven by perceived cost savings and a desire for rapid deployment, pushes for a solution that may not align with long-term operational stability, security best practices, or compliance requirements. The architect must balance stakeholder demands with technical feasibility and regulatory adherence. The challenge lies in translating business objectives into a technically sound and compliant cloud solution, requiring a deep understanding of OCI services, their implications, and the relevant regulatory landscape for the specified jurisdiction. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the client's specific workload requirements, including performance, availability, security, and compliance mandates. This includes evaluating OCI services like Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Identity and Access Management, OCI IAM, for granular access control, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Vault for secure secret management, and Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Security Zones for enforcing security policies. The architect should then design a solution that leverages these services to meet the client's needs, while adhering to the principles of least privilege and defense in depth. This approach is best professional practice because it prioritizes a secure, compliant, and resilient architecture, which is paramount in cloud environments. It directly addresses the regulatory framework by ensuring that data protection, access control, and security configurations are implemented according to OCI best practices and any applicable Oracle-specific compliance guidelines relevant to the 1Z0-1072-22 exams assumed jurisdiction, which is generally U.S.-centric for Oracle certifications, unless otherwise specified, implying adherence to U.S. federal and state regulations concerning data privacy and security. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a solution without a comprehensive security review and relying solely on default OCI configurations is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach neglects the principle of least privilege, potentially exposing sensitive data and systems to unauthorized access, which violates fundamental security and data protection regulations. It also fails to leverage OCI's robust security features, leading to a non-compliant and insecure posture. Deploying a solution that bypasses OCI IAM for administrative tasks and uses shared credentials or direct API key access without proper rotation and auditing is another critical failure. This directly contravenes security best practices and regulatory requirements for access control and accountability. It creates a high risk of unauthorized actions, data breaches, and makes it impossible to trace actions back to specific individuals, hindering any compliance audit. Choosing services based purely on perceived ease of use or initial cost without considering their security implications or long-term operational overhead is also problematic. This can lead to the selection of services that are not designed for the workload's security or compliance needs, or that incur hidden costs in terms of management and potential remediation efforts. This approach lacks due diligence and foresight, potentially leading to future compliance issues and increased total cost of ownership. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured approach to cloud architecture design. This begins with a thorough understanding of business requirements, followed by a comprehensive assessment of security and compliance needs. The next step is to map these requirements to appropriate OCI services, prioritizing those that offer robust security features and adhere to regulatory mandates. A critical part of this process is conducting a risk assessment and implementing controls based on the principle of least privilege and defense in depth. Regular review and auditing of the deployed architecture are essential to maintain security and compliance. When stakeholder pressure arises, the architect must clearly articulate the risks associated with non-compliant or insecure solutions, referencing relevant best practices and potential regulatory consequences to guide decision-making towards a secure and sustainable outcome. Question 3. Compliance review shows that a new customer-facing application designed to process sensitive personal data is being fast-tracked for deployment on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI. The development team is eager to launch within the next 2 weeks to meet a market opportunity, and they have indicated that they have implemented standard security measures. However, the dedicated OCI security and compliance teams have not yet had an opportunity to review the architecture or the implemented controls. The project manager is pushing for immediate deployment to capitalize on the market window. As the OCI architect responsible for this deployment, what is the most appropriate course of action to ensure both business objectives and regulatory adherence are met? Option A. Delegate the responsibility of ensuring security and compliance to the development team, trusting their expertise in implementing standard security measures for OCI applications. Option B. Advise the project manager that the deployment can proceed, but recommend that the development team implement additional security controls after the initial launch to address any potential gaps identified by the security and compliance teams. Option C. Halt the deployment immediately and insist on a comprehensive review and sign-off from the OCI security and compliance teams before any part of the application goes live, even if it means missing the market window. Option D. Proceed with the deployment as planned, documenting the development team's assurance of standard security measures and scheduling a post-deployment review with the security and compliance teams. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the deployment as planned, documenting the development team's assurance of standard security measures and scheduling a post-deployment review with the security and compliance teams. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture, where the need for rapid deployment and feature iteration clashes with the imperative of maintaining robust security and compliance. The stakeholders' pressure for speed, while understandable from a business perspective, can lead to overlooking critical security configurations and adherence to established best practices. The architect must balance competing demands, ensuring that security and compliance are not sacrificed for expediency, which could result in significant regulatory penalties and reputational damage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and collaborative engagement with the security and compliance teams. This ensures that security requirements are integrated into the design phase from the outset, rather than being an afterthought. By involving these stakeholders early, the architect can leverage their expertise to identify potential risks, understand regulatory obligations relevant to the data being processed, and implement appropriate controls within the OCI environment. This aligns with the principle of security by design and demonstrates a commitment to regulatory adherence, which is paramount in cloud deployments. Specifically, within the context of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, this would involve understanding and applying OCI's shared responsibility model, leveraging OCI's built-in security services, e.g., identity and access management, network security groups, security zones, and ensuring configurations meet relevant compliance standards, e.g., GDPR, HIPAA, if applicable to the data. Correct approach is analysis. Proceeding with deployment without explicit sign-off from security and compliance teams represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses established governance processes designed to protect sensitive data and ensure adherence to legal frameworks. It creates a blind spot where potential vulnerabilities or non-compliance issues can go undetected, leading to breaches or audit failures. From an ethical standpoint, it demonstrates a disregard for the organization's responsibility to protect customer data and comply with the law. Implementing security controls only after the application is live, without prior review, is also a failure. This reactive approach is inherently riskier. It assumes that the implemented controls will be sufficient, which may not be the case, and it leaves the system exposed during the critical initial deployment phase. This can lead to immediate security incidents or non-compliance that could have been prevented with upfront planning and review. Relying solely on the development team's understanding of security best practices without involving dedicated security and compliance personnel is another critical failure. While developers may have some security awareness, they are not typically experts in regulatory compliance or the intricacies of cloud security configurations. This can lead to misinterpretations of requirements, incomplete implementation of controls, and a failure to address specific regulatory mandates relevant to the OCI environment. Professional reasoning. Professionals in cloud architecture must adopt a risk-based approach that prioritizes security and compliance. This involves understanding the regulatory landscape applicable to the data and services being deployed. When faced with pressure for rapid deployment, the architect should clearly articulate the risks associated with bypassing established security and compliance checkpoints. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying all relevant regulatory requirements and organizational policies. 2. Assessing the potential impact of non-compliance, financial, reputational, legal. 3. Engaging all necessary stakeholders, security, compliance, legal, business, early in the project lifecycle. 4. Documenting all decisions, risks, and mitigation strategies. 5. Advocating for a phased approach where security and compliance are validated at each stage of deployment. The architect's role is to be a trusted advisor, ensuring that technological innovation is pursued responsibly and within the bounds of legal and ethical obligations. Question 4. The audit findings indicate that the organization's rapid adoption of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Services has outpaced the implementation of comprehensive security governance, potentially exposing sensitive data to unauthorized access. As the OCI Architect Associate, what is the most appropriate immediate action to address these findings and ensure ongoing compliance? Option A. Immediately deploy additional OCI security services, such as web application firewall and security zones, across all existing and new deployments to enhance the security posture. Option B. Advise the business units to temporarily halt the deployment of new OCI services until a comprehensive security strategy can be developed and implemented. Option C. Rely on the default security settings provided by OCI for all services, assuming they are sufficient for general compliance and data protection. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of existing OCI security configurations and access controls against OCI security best practices and relevant industry compliance frameworks, engaging security and compliance teams to identify and prioritize remediation efforts. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review of existing OCI security configurations and access controls against OCI security best practices and relevant industry compliance frameworks, engaging security and compliance teams to identify and prioritize remediation efforts. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid cloud adoption and the need for robust security governance, particularly when dealing with sensitive data. The audit findings highlight a potential gap in the organization's ability to demonstrate compliance with security, best practices, and regulatory requirements within the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OSI) environment. The architect must balance the business's desire for agility with the imperative to protect data and maintain a secure posture, all while adhering to the specific compliance frameworks relevant to the organization's industry and geographic location, as dictated by the 1Z0-1072-22 exam scope, which implicitly assumes adherence to common cloud security principles and practices. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and documented review of existing security controls against established OCI security best practices and relevant compliance frameworks. This proactive stance ensures that security is not an afterthought, but is integrated into the cloud architecture from the outset. By engaging stakeholders, including security and compliance teams, the architect fosters a collaborative environment that leads to a shared understanding of risks and responsibilities. This aligns with the principle of defense in depth and the shared responsibility model in cloud computing, ensuring that both the cloud providers and the customer's responsibilities are clearly understood and addressed. This approach also facilitates the creation of an audit trail, crucial for demonstrating compliance during future audits. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing new OCI services without a prior security assessment risks introducing vulnerabilities or misconfigurations. This is a regulatory failure because it bypasses the due diligence required to ensure that deployed services meet security standards and compliance obligations. It also represents an ethical failure by potentially exposing the organization to data breaches and noncompliance penalties. Another incorrect approach that involves relying solely on the default security settings of OCI services is also professionally unacceptable. While OCI provides robust default security, these settings may not be sufficient for all use cases or regulatory requirements. This approach demonstrates a lack of understanding of the shared responsibility model and the need for tailored security configurations, leading to potential compliance gaps and security risks. A further incorrect approach that involves deferring security remediation to a later phase, after deployment, is a critical professional and regulatory failure. This move fast and break things mentality is antithetical to secure cloud architecture. It significantly increases the risk of security incidents and data breaches, and it makes demonstrating compliance extremely difficult, as security controls are not in place from the beginning. This approach often leads to costly and time-consuming rework. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a phased approach. First, understand the requirements business and regulatory. Second, assess the current state and identify gaps. Third, design and implement solutions with security and compliance as core tenets. And finally, continuously monitor and adapt. Collaboration with relevant stakeholders, thorough documentation, and a commitment to best practices are paramount. Question 5. Stakeholder feedback indicates that users are experiencing significant delays when accessing a critical business application hosted on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, impacting productivity and customer satisfaction. The application relies on real-time data processing and requires consistent, low-latency network access. What is the most effective and professional approach to address these performance concerns while ensuring cost efficiency and adherence to OCI best practices? Option A. Focus solely on increasing the bandwidth of the existing internet connection without analyzing network path congestion or application efficiency. Option B. Increase the size of the compute instances hosting the application without investigating network or application-level bottlenecks. Option C. Migrate the entire application to a different cloud provider to escape perceived OCI limitations. Option D. Implement OCI Fast Connect for a dedicated network connection. Deploy OCI load balancing to distribute traffic and optimize application code and database queries. The correct answer is D. Implement OCI Fast Connect for a dedicated network connection. Deploy OCI load balancing to distribute traffic and optimize application code and database queries. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture where a critical business application's performance is impacted by network latency. The challenge lies in balancing cost-effectiveness with the need for optimal performance and adherence to compliance requirements, especially when dealing with sensitive data. Stakeholders are understandably concerned about user experience and potential business impact, necessitating a solution that is both technically sound and financially responsible. The need to maintain compliance with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI, best practices and potential regulatory considerations. Though not explicitly stated as a specific jurisdiction, OCI's global nature implies adherence to general data protection principles and security standards, adds another layer of complexity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a multifaceted strategy that directly addresses the root cause of latency while considering OCI's service offerings and cost implications. Implementing OCI Fast Connect provides a dedicated, private network connection, significantly reducing latency and improving bandwidth compared to public internet connections. This is crucial for applications requiring consistent, high-performance network access. Simultaneously, leveraging OCI load balancing distributes traffic efficiently across compute resources, preventing bottlenecks and enhancing application availability. Finally, optimizing application code and database queries addresses potential inefficiencies within the application itself, which can also contribute to perceived latency. This holistic approach ensures that the solution is robust, scalable, and cost-effective by addressing multiple potential points of failure and optimization. It aligns with OCI's architectural best practices for high availability and performance-sensitive workloads. Incorrect approaches analysis. Simply increasing the compute instance size without addressing the network or application inefficiencies is a common but often misguided approach. This is akin to putting a larger engine in a car with a clogged fuel line. It might offer marginal improvement, but doesn't solve the fundamental problem, and is often a more expensive solution. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach can be seen as wasteful of resources, potentially leading to unnecessary cloud spend, which could be a concern for financial governance and responsible resource management. Migrating the entire application to a different cloud provider without a thorough analysis of the root cause of latency is premature and carries significant risks. This approach ignores the possibility that the latency issues are addressable within OCI. It can lead to substantial migration costs, potential downtime, and the risk of encountering similar or new issues in a different environment. Ethically, it represents a failure to adequately investigate and resolve issues within the current platform, potentially leading to a suboptimal outcome for the organization. Focusing solely on increasing bandwidth without considering the underlying network path or application optimization is also insufficient. While increased bandwidth is important, if the network path itself is congested or the application is inefficient, simply having more bandwidth will not guarantee improved performance. This approach fails to address the full scope of the problem and may lead to a solution that is only partially effective, potentially requiring further investment later. This can be viewed as a failure in due diligence and a lack of comprehensive problem-solving. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such scenarios by first conducting a thorough root cause analysis. This involves detailed monitoring of network traffic, application performance metrics, and database query execution. Once the primary causes of latency are identified, a phased approach to remediation should be considered, prioritizing solutions that offer the most significant impact for the investment. This includes evaluating OCI native services like Fast Connect and load balancing, as well as application-level optimizations. Cost-benefit analysis should be a continuous part of the decision-making process, ensuring that solutions are not only technically sound, but also financially responsible. Regular communication with stakeholders, providing clear explanations of the problem, proposed solutions, and expected outcomes, is crucial for managing expectations and ensuring alignment. Question 6. Quality control measures reveal that a critical customer-facing application hosted on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure is experiencing intermittent performance degradation, leading to user complaints about slow response times. As the OCI architect, what is the most professional and effective initial approach to diagnose the root cause? Option A. Rely on anecdotal user feedback to guide troubleshooting efforts without collecting objective performance data. Option B. Immediately begin reconfiguring network security groups and firewall rules, suspecting a network latency issue. Option C. Utilize OCI monitoring and logging services to gather performance metrics and analyze logs from compute instances and the application to identify resource bottlenecks or errors. Option D. Focus solely on reviewing application code for potential bugs or inefficient queries without examining infrastructure metrics. The correct answer is B. Immediately begin reconfiguring network security groups and firewall rules, suspecting a network latency issue. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture where a critical application's performance is degrading, impacting user experience and potentially business operations. The challenge lies in diagnosing the root cause efficiently and effectively within the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OCI) environment, balancing the need for rapid resolution with the requirement to adhere to established architectural best practices and security protocols. The stakeholder perspective is crucial, as the impact on end users and business continuity must be prioritized. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation using OCI's native monitoring and logging services. This aligns with best professional practice by leveraging the tools and data provided by the cloud platform itself, specifically utilizing OCI monitoring to track key performance indicators, KPI of the application and its underlying compute resources, e.g., CPU utilization, memory usage, network I/O, provides objective data. Correlating these metrics with OCI logging service logs from the application and compute instances can pinpoint error messages, resource contention, or unexpected behavior. Furthermore, examining OCI application performance monitoring, APM, if implemented, offers deeper insights into transaction tracing and code-level performance bottlenecks. This data-driven, platform-native approach ensures that the diagnosis is accurate, efficient, and minimizes the risk of introducing new issues through external or unverified tools. It directly addresses the problem by identifying the cause within the OCI environment. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately assume a network issue and begin reconfiguring network security groups or firewalls without first gathering performance metrics. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it bypasses a structured diagnostic process, potentially leading to unnecessary changes that could inadvertently weaken security posture or disrupt other services. It's a reactive, rather than a proactive, problem-solving method. Another incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the application code without considering the underlying infrastructure. While application code can be a source of performance issues, neglecting to examine OCI resource utilization or logs means ignoring potential infrastructure-level bottlenecks that the code might be exacerbating or that are independent of the code itself. This is a failure in comprehensive analysis and can lead to misdiagnosis and wasted effort. A third incorrect approach would be to rely on anecdotal user reports without validating them with objective data from OCI's monitoring tools. While user feedback is valuable, it needs to be substantiated by technical evidence to pinpoint the exact cause. Without this, troubleshooting can become subjective and inefficient, potentially leading to incorrect assumptions and solutions. This represents a failure in due diligence and data-driven decision-making. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, data-driven approach to troubleshooting. This involves 1. Understanding the reported problem and its business impact. 2. Leveraging OCI's native monitoring and logging tools to gather objective performance data. 3. Correlating metrics and logs to identify potential root causes across application and infrastructure layers. 4. Formulating hypotheses based on the evidence. 5. Testing hypotheses through targeted investigations or controlled changes. 6. Documenting findings and resolutions. This systematic process ensures that solutions are effective, efficient, and maintain the integrity and security of the OCI environment. Question 7. Performance analysis shows that a critical application hosted on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, is not meeting the required compliance standards for data access and credential management, potentially exposing sensitive customer information. The organization needs to implement immediate architectural changes within OCI to rectify this situation and ensure adherence to regulatory mandates. Which of the following architectural approaches best addresses this compliance gap while adhering to OCI security best practices? Option A. Integrate a third-party data loss prevention (DLP) solution directly into the application's code, bypassing OCI's native security services for credential and access management. Option B. Enhance network security by deploying additional OCI network security groups, NSG, and configuring OCI Web Application Firewall, WAF, rules to filter incoming traffic, assuming this will indirectly prevent unauthorized data access. Option C. Implement granular identity and access management, EAM, policies to enforce the principle of least privilege for all users and services accessing the application's data. Leverage OCI Vault for secure storage and management of all application secrets and credentials, and configure OCI security zones to enforce predefined security configurations for the compute resources hosting the application. Option D. Rely on OCI's default security configurations for compute instances and storage, assuming that the platform's inherent security features are sufficient to meet the identified compliance requirements without further architectural modifications. The correct answer is C. Implement granular identity and access management, EAM, policies to enforce the principle of least privilege for all users and services accessing the application's data. Leverage OCI Vault for secure storage and management of all application secrets and credentials, and configure OCI security zones to enforce predefined security configurations for the compute resources hosting the application. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture, balancing the need for robust security and compliance with the operational efficiency and cost-effectiveness of cloud services. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, security best practices and general regulatory principles within the context of a specific, albeit hypothetical, compliance requirement. The architect must not only understand OCI's capabilities, but also how they map to external mandates, ensuring that the chosen solution is both technically sound and legally defensible. The pressure to deliver a solution quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a multi-layered strategy that directly addresses the identified compliance gap by leveraging OCI's native security services and adhering to established security principles. Specifically, implementing OCI identity and access management, EAM, policies to enforce the principle of least privilege, utilizing OCI Vault for secure management of secrets, and enabling OCI security zones to enforce predefined security configurations are all best practices. These actions directly align with common regulatory frameworks that mandate data protection, access control, and secure configuration management. By proactively addressing these areas, the architect ensures that the cloud environment meets the required compliance standards, thereby mitigating risks of data breaches, unauthorized access, and regulatory penalties. This approach demonstrates a commitment to a secure-by-design philosophy, which is a cornerstone of professional cloud architecture and regulatory adherence. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves relying solely on network security controls like OCI network security groups, NSG, and web application firewalls, WAF, without addressing the underlying access and credential management. While these are important for perimeter defense, they do not inherently solve the problem of unauthorized access to sensitive data if credentials are compromised or if internal access controls are insufficient. This fails to meet regulatory requirements that often mandate granular access controls and secure credential handling. Another incorrect approach is to assume that OCI's default configurations are sufficient for compliance. While OCI offers robust security features, default settings are often designed for broad usability and may not meet the stringent requirements of specific compliance mandates. Overlooking the need for explicit configuration and policy enforcement, such as defining specific IAM policies or enabling security zones, leaves the environment vulnerable and non-compliant. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to understand the shared responsibility model in cloud security. A third incorrect approach might be to implement a custom, third-party security solution without fully integrating it with OCI's native security services or understanding its implications for OCI's security posture. While third-party tools can be valuable, they can also introduce complexity and potential gaps if not managed correctly. Furthermore, relying on external solutions without first exhausting OCI's native capabilities might be less efficient and potentially more costly, and it could also lead to a fragmented security approach that is harder to audit and manage for compliance. This approach risks creating blind spots and failing to leverage the integrated security benefits provided by OCI. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach compliance challenges by first thoroughly understanding the specific regulatory requirements. This involves identifying the core principles and mandates related to data protection, access control, and system integrity. Next, they should assess the capabilities of the cloud platform, OCI in this case, to meet these requirements, prioritizing native services that are designed for security and compliance. A risk-based approach is crucial, focusing on the most critical assets and potential vulnerabilities. Implementing a defense-in-depth strategy, where multiple layers of security controls are in place, is essential. Regular auditing and continuous monitoring of the cloud environment are also vital to ensure ongoing compliance. When faced with a compliance gap, the professional decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the gap. 2. Researching OCI services and best practices that address the gap. 3. Designing a solution that integrates these services effectively. 4. Implementing the solution with proper testing. And 5. Establishing a process for ongoing monitoring and validation. Question 8. Comparative studies suggest that when a critical OCI application experiences intermittent performance degradation, an architect's immediate response can significantly impact resolution time and system stability. Given this, which of the following diagnostic and resolution strategies best aligns with professional best practices for cloud architects operating within the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure ecosystem? Option A. Immediately provision additional compute resources across all affected application tiers, assuming that increased capacity will alleviate the performance issues. Option B. Proactively leverage OCI's observability services, including metrics, logs, and tracing, to identify the specific bottleneck or error causing the performance degradation before implementing any changes. Option C. Escalate the issue to the OCI support team without conducting any initial troubleshooting or data collection. Option D. Roll back the application to its last known stable version without performing any detailed analysis of the current system state or logs. The correct answer is B. Proactively leverage OCI's observability services, including metrics, logs, and tracing, to identify the specific bottleneck or error causing the performance degradation before implementing any changes. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture where a critical application's performance is degrading, impacting business operations. The architect must balance the immediate need for resolution with long-term stability and adherence to best practices. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to hasty decisions that might introduce new risks or violate established governance. The challenge lies in diagnosing the root cause accurately and implementing a solution that is both effective and compliant with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, best practices, and any relevant, though not explicitly stated here, industry standards for availability and performance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation. This aligns with OCI's emphasis on observability and monitoring. By leveraging OCI's monitoring tools, e.g., OCI monitoring, application performance monitoring, to collect metrics, analyze logs, and trace requests, the architect can pinpoint the exact bottleneck. This methodical approach ensures that the solution addresses the actual problem, not just the symptoms. It also supports a proactive stance, allowing for the identification of potential future issues. This aligns with the principle of responsible cloud resource management, ensuring that solutions are robust and sustainable. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, unverified change like increasing compute resources without understanding the cause is a regulatory and ethical failure. It represents a failure to exercise due diligence and a disregard for efficient resource utilization, which can have cost implications and potentially mask underlying architectural flaws. This approach is akin to shotgun debugging and can lead to over-provisioning, violating principles of cost optimization and potentially impacting security if not managed carefully. Another incorrect approach is to immediately revert to a previous, known good configuration without thorough analysis. While seemingly a quick fix, it fails to address the root cause of the degradation. This can lead to recurring issues and a lack of learning from the incident. Ethically, it represents a failure to improve the system and a potential neglect of duty to provide a consistently performing service. Finally, escalating the issue without any initial investigation is also professionally unsound. While escalation is a part of incident management, it should be a last resort after initial troubleshooting. Performing a basic level of analysis demonstrates competence and allows for more informed escalation, providing the next level of support with crucial diagnostic information. Failing to do so can be seen as shirking responsibility and inefficient use of organizational resources. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured incident response and problem-solving framework. This typically involves 1. Identification, recognizing the issue and its impact. 2. Containment, taking immediate steps to limit further damage or degradation. 3. Diagnosis, systematically investigating the root cause using available tools and data. 4. Resolution, implementing a targeted solution based on the diagnosis. 5. Prevention, taking steps to avoid recurrence. 6. Review, analyzing the incident and the response to identify lessons learned. In OSI, this translates to leveraging the platform's built-in monitoring, logging, and tracing capabilities as the primary diagnostic tools. Question 9. Quality control measures reveal that a critical customer-facing application, designed to serve users in Germany, must strictly adhere to German data protection regulations, which mandate that all personal data of German citizens must reside within Germany. The application will utilize Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI, services for its backend operations. The architect must select the most appropriate OCI region for deploying the application's core compute and database resources to ensure compliance. Option A. Deploy the application's core compute and database resources in the OCI Frankfurt region, but store all customer data in OCI object storage buckets located in the OCI UK, London, region. Option B. Deploy the application's core compute and database resources in the OCI US East Ashburn region and rely on application-level encryption. Option C. Deploy the application's core compute and database resources in the OCI Frankfurt region. Option D. Deploy the application's core compute and database resources globally across multiple OCI regions, without specific consideration for German data residency. The correct answer is C. Deploy the application's core compute and database resources in the OCI Frankfurt region. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data residency and compliance within the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI ecosystem. The architect must balance the technical requirements of a global application with the stringent data protection regulations of a specific jurisdiction. The challenge lies in ensuring that sensitive customer data, even when processed or temporarily stored, remains within the designated geographical boundaries to avoid regulatory penalties and maintain customer trust. The architect's decision directly impacts the organization's legal standing and operational capabilities. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging OCI's regional capabilities to ensure data residency. Specifically, deploying resources in a region that aligns with the specified jurisdiction's data protection laws is paramount. This demonstrates adherence to regulatory frameworks by proactively designing the infrastructure to meet compliance mandates. It represents best professional practice because it prioritizes legal and ethical obligations from the outset, preventing costly remediation efforts and reputational damage. This proactive stance aligns with the principle of privacy by design, a cornerstone of modern data protection regulations. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves deploying resources in a region outside the specified jurisdiction, relying solely on application-level encryption for data protection. This fails to meet the core requirement of data residency. Regulatory frameworks often mandate that data physically resides within certain borders, regardless of encryption status. Encryption protects data confidentiality, but does not address the geographical control aspect, leading to potential violations and fines. Another incorrect approach is to deploy resources globally without considering specific jurisdictional requirements, assuming OCI's global network inherently satisfies compliance. This approach ignores the nuanced and often strict nature of data residency laws, which are jurisdiction-specific. It is a failure to conduct due diligence and a disregard for the legal obligations of operating within or serving customers in that jurisdiction. A third incorrect approach is to deploy resources in the specified jurisdiction, but store all data in object storage buckets located in a different region for cost optimization. While object storage can be highly cost-effective, it must still adhere to data residency rules. Storing data in a non-compliant region, even if the compute resources are compliant, violates the spirit and letter of data protection laws that govern the location of data. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves 1. Identifying all applicable regulatory requirements for the target jurisdictions. 2. Understanding the capabilities and limitations of the chosen cloud platform, OSI, in meeting these requirements, particularly regarding regional deployments and data residency. 3. Assessing the technical and business implications of different deployment strategies. 4. Prioritizing compliance and security in the design phase, rather than as an afterthought. 5. Consulting with legal and compliance teams to validate the chosen architecture against specific regulations. Question 10. To address the challenge of designing a highly available and secure data processing pipeline in Oracle Cloud infrastructure that must comply with strict data residency and access control regulations, which architectural approach should an OCI architect associate prioritize? Option A. Prioritize the use of the most cost-effective OCI services and configurations to minimize operational expenses, assuming that security and compliance can be retrofitted if issues arise. Option B. Select OCI services that offer robust built-in security features and compliance certifications, and configure them according to the specific regulatory mandates, even if it involves a slightly higher initial cost or a more deliberate deployment timeline. Option C. Focus on rapid deployment of the data processing pipeline using the most readily available OCI services, with the understanding that security and compliance checks will be performed as a secondary step after the system is operational. Option D. Implement a custom-built solution using open-source components deployed on OCI compute instances to gain maximum control, without extensively verifying their compliance certifications or the regulatory implications of their use. The correct answer is B. Select OCI services that offer robust built-in security features and compliance certifications, and configure them according to the specific regulatory mandates, even if it involves a slightly higher initial cost or a more deliberate deployment timeline. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture, balancing the need for robust security and compliance with the desire for agility and cost-effectiveness. The professional challenge lies in making a decision that satisfies multiple, often competing, requirements. Specifically, the architect must ensure that the chosen solution adheres to Oracle Cloud infrastructure, OSI best practices, and the specific compliance mandates relevant to the organization's industry, while also considering the operational overhead and potential impact on development velocity. Careful judgment is required to avoid over-engineering or under-provisioning, both of which can lead to significant business and security risks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, risk-based methodology. By first identifying and understanding the specific regulatory requirements, e.g., data residency, access controls, audit logging, and then mapping these to OCI services and configuration, the architect ensures that compliance is built into the solution from the outset. This proactive approach, often guided by frameworks like the Shared Responsibility Model in cloud security and OCI's own security best practices documentation, minimizes the likelihood of costly remediation efforts later. It demonstrates a commitment to due diligence and responsible cloud adoption, aligning with the ethical obligation to protect sensitive data and maintain system integrity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without adequately assessing security and compliance risks is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for regulatory obligations, which can result in significant fines, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. For instance, implementing a less secure storage solution to save costs without verifying its compliance with data protection regulation violates the principle of data stewardship and potentially breaches legal requirements. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes rapid deployment over thorough security and compliance validation is equally problematic. This can lead to vulnerabilities being introduced into the production environment, exposing the organization to cyber threats and noncompliance. The ethical failure here is a lack of professional diligence and a potential disregard for the organization's security posture and legal standing. The professional decision-making process for similar situation should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the business and technical context. Clearly define the project's goals, the data involved, and the existing infrastructure. 2. Identify and prioritize requirements. Differentiate between functional, non-functional security, performance, availability, and compliance requirements. 3. Research and evaluate OCI services. Map requirements to available OCI services and features, considering their security, compliance, and cost implications. 4. Conduct a risk assessment. Identify potential risks associated with each proposed solution and develop mitigation strategies. 5. Consult with stakeholders. Engage with security teams, legal counsel, and business owners to ensure alignment and buy-in. 6. Document decisions and rationale. Maintain clear records of the decision-making process, including the justification for the chosen solution and any trade-offs made. 7. Iterate and monitor. Cloud environments are dynamic. Continuously monitor the deployed solution for security, performance, and compliance, and be prepared to adapt as needed. Question 11. The evaluation methodology shows that a new, highly anticipated Oracle Cloud Infrastructure service is now available. While it promises significant performance enhancements and cost reductions for a critical business function, its long-term security posture and compliance implications are not yet fully documented or widely understood within the organization. The architect must decide on the best approach for integrating this service. Option A. Immediately integrate the service to capitalize on its performance and cost benefits, assuming that Oracle's inherent security measures will suffice and addressing any compliance issues reactively as they arise. Option B. Prioritize integration based on the projected cost savings, deferring any detailed security or compliance reviews until after the service has been deployed and is actively in use. Option C. Rely on the marketing materials and the enthusiasm of a few early adopters within the company to gauge the service's suitability and proceed with integration based on their positive feedback. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive security and compliance assessment, including a review of the service's architecture, data handling practices, and potential integration with existing compliance frameworks before proceeding with full adoption. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive security and compliance assessment, including a review of the service's architecture, data handling practices, and potential integration with existing compliance frameworks before proceeding with full adoption. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid innovation and the need for robust security and compliance within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. Architects must balance the desire to leverage new OCI services for competitive advantage against the imperative to adhere to established security best practices and potential regulatory requirements, even if not explicitly stated for a nascent service. The challenge lies in making informed decisions without complete historical data or established patterns for a new offering. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a proactive, risk-aware strategy aligned with the principles of secure cloud adoption. By conducting a thorough security and compliance assessment before full adoption, the architect demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to protecting organizational data and meeting potential future regulatory obligations. This aligns with the general principles of cloud security and governance, which emphasize understanding the shared responsibility model and the security implications of any deployed service. While specific regulations for a brand new OCI service might not yet exist, the architect is acting in anticipation of potential requirements and adhering to the spirit of compliance and risk management. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the immediate cost savings and performance benefits, without considering security and compliance implications, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This oversight could lead to data breaches, non-compliance with industry standards or future regulations, and reputational damage. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and a disregard for the fundamental principles of secure cloud architecture. Another incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few early adopters without a structured assessment is also professionally unacceptable. This approach is inherently risky as it bypasses systematic evaluation and could overlook critical vulnerabilities or compliance gaps. It fails to establish a defensible rationale for the adoption decision and exposes the organization to undue risk. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured decision-making framework. This framework should include 1. Defining the objective and scope of the adoption. 2. Identifying potential risks, including security, compliance, and operational risks. 3. Evaluating available information and conducting necessary assessments, e.g., security reviews, compliance checks. 4. Considering alternative solutions or phased adoption strategies. 5. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen approach. 6. Establishing a plan for ongoing monitoring and reassessment as the service matures and regulatory landscapes evolve. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are well-informed, defensible, and aligned with organizational goals and risk tolerance. Question 12. Strategic planning requires a thorough evaluation of how to integrate a new data analytics workload into an existing Oracle Cloud infrastructure environment, ensuring both performance and adherence to security best practices. Which of the following architectural considerations best supports this objective? Option A. Configuring all network access to the new workload to be publicly accessible, with the expectation that security will be managed through application authentication mechanisms. Option B. Deploying the workload using the most readily available OCI compute and storage services, with minimal initial configuration of network or access controls to expedite deployment. Option C. Relying solely on application-level security measures within the data analytics software, assuming OCI's underlying infrastructure provides sufficient protection. Option D. Prioritizing the use of OCI services with robust built-in security features, implementing granular IAM policies, and configuring network security controls to enforce the principle of least privilege. The correct answer is D. Prioritizing the use of OCI services with robust built-in security features, implementing granular IAM policies, and configuring network security controls to enforce the principle of least privilege. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture, where the need for rapid deployment and innovation clashes with the imperative to maintain robust security and compliance. The architect must balance agility with the foundational principles of secure cloud design, ensuring that the chosen OCI services and configurations align with established best practices and regulatory expectations relevant to the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure 2022 Architect Associate Exam scope. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method to integrate a new, potentially sensitive data processing workload into an existing OCI environment without introducing undue risk or violating implicit security postures. The correct approach emphasizes a proactive and layered security strategy, leveraging OCI's native security services and adhering to the principle of least privilege. This involves carefully selecting OCI services that offer built-in security features, configuring network security controls like VCN security lists and network security groups to restrict access, and implementing robust identity and access management (IAM) policies. This aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing security from the outset, ensuring that the solution is not only functional, but also resilient against threats and compliant with general cloud security principles. The regulatory and ethical justification stems from the implicit requirement to protect data and maintain system integrity, which are fundamental tenets of responsible cloud architecture. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without adequate security considerations would be professionally unacceptable. This could manifest as deploying services with overly permissive network access or inadequate IAM policies, creating vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Such an approach would represent a failure to uphold professional responsibility by neglecting the security implications of architectural decisions, potentially leading to data breaches or unauthorized access, which are significant regulatory and ethical failures. Another incorrect approach might involve over-reliance on manual configuration without leveraging OCI's automation and security tooling. This increases the risk of human error, misconfiguration, and inconsistent security postures, again failing to meet professional standards for robust and secure cloud deployments. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the workload's requirements, including data sensitivity and compliance obligations. This should be followed by an assessment of OCI services that best meet these requirements while offering strong security features. A critical step is to design the network and access controls based on the principle of least privilege, ensuring that only necessary access is granted. Finally, the architect should plan for ongoing monitoring and auditing to maintain security and compliance over time. Question 13. Governance review demonstrates that a new OCI solution is being developed with a focus on rapid deployment, but the impact assessment process has been deferred until after the initial go-live. Which of the following approaches best aligns with OCI's recommended governance framework for managing this situation? Option A. Proceed with the deployment as planned and initiate a post-deployment impact assessment to identify and address any issues that arise. Option B. Utilize a standardized, generic impact assessment template to quickly evaluate the solution's potential effects. Option C. Delegate the impact assessment solely to the development team, trusting their understanding of the solution's technical implications. Option D. Immediately halt the deployment and conduct a thorough impact assessment involving all relevant stakeholders before proceeding. The correct answer is D. Immediately halt the deployment and conduct a thorough impact assessment involving all relevant stakeholders before proceeding. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture, balancing the need for rapid innovation and deployment with robust governance and compliance. The challenge lies in ensuring that the impact assessment process, a critical component of governance, is not merely a bureaucratic hurdle, but an effective mechanism for identifying and mitigating risks before they materialize. The pressure to deliver features quickly can lead to shortcuts or superficial assessments, which can have significant downstream consequences, including security breaches, compliance violations, and increased operational costs. Professional judgment is required to integrate the impact assessment seamlessly into the development lifecycle without stifling agility. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves integrating a comprehensive impact assessment into the early stages of the project lifecycle, specifically during the design and planning phases. This proactive stance allows architects to identify potential impacts on security, compliance, performance, and cost before significant resources are committed. By engaging relevant stakeholders, including security, legal, and finance teams, early on, the assessment can leverage diverse expertise to uncover potential risks that a single individual or team might miss. This aligns with best practices in cloud governance, which emphasize a risk-based approach to decision-making and the principle of security by design. For the 1Z0-1072-22 exam, this reflects the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, Best Practices for Governance, which advocate for a structured and integrated approach to managing cloud resources and their associated risks. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to conduct the impact assessment only after the solution has been fully developed and deployed. This is a reactive and inefficient strategy. It leads to significant rework, delays, and potentially costly remediation efforts if critical issues are discovered late in the process. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach demonstrates a failure to adhere to principles of due diligence and responsible cloud adoption. It increases the likelihood of noncompliance with OCI best practices and potentially external regulations, as risks are not identified and mitigated proactively. Another incorrect approach is to delegate the impact assessment solely to the development team without involving other specialized functions. While developers are crucial, they may lack the specialized knowledge in areas like data privacy, regulatory compliance, e.g., GDPR, HIPAA if applicable in a broader context, though strictly adhering to OCI's framework, or advanced security threat modeling. This siloed approach can result in an incomplete or biased assessment, overlooking critical risks that fall outside the development team's primary expertise. Ethically, this can be seen as a failure to ensure adequate oversight and risk management, potentially exposing the organization to undue harm. A third incorrect approach is to rely on a generic, one-size-fits-all impact assessment template that does not account for the specific context, data sensitivity, or regulatory requirements of the OCI services being used. This superficial assessment fails to identify nuanced risks specific to the deployed architecture and services. It can lead to a false sense of security and compliance, while actual vulnerabilities remain unaddressed. This approach violates the principle of tailoring governance controls to the specific risks and context of the cloud environment, a core tenet of effective cloud governance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based proactive approach to impact assessment. This involves 1. Early engagement. Involve all relevant stakeholders, security, compliance, finance, operations, from the initial design phase. 2. Contextualization. Tailor the assessment to the specific OCI services, data types, and business objectives of the project. 3. Iterative process. Treat impact assessment as an ongoing process, revisiting it as the solution evolves or new threats emerge. 4. Documentation and traceability. Maintain clear records of assessments, identified risks, and mitigation strategies for auditability and continuous improvement. This systematic approach ensures that governance is an enabler of innovation, not a barrier, by embedding risk management into the fabric of cloud operations. Question 14. Consider a scenario where a financial services firm plans to migrate a critical customer-facing application to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, to improve scalability and performance. The project team is under pressure to complete the migration within a tight deadline. Which of the following actions is the most critical first step to ensure a successful and compliant migration? Option A. Immediately begin provisioning OCI compute and storage resources based on current on-premises infrastructure specifications. Option B. Focus solely on optimizing the application code for OCI performance without considering the broader operational and compliance implications. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the application's dependencies, security requirements, data residency, and compliance obligations within the OCI environment. Option D. Proceed with the migration using a lift-and-shift approach, assuming OCI's default security configurations will be sufficient. The correct answer is A. Immediately begin provisioning OCI compute and storage resources based on current on-premises infrastructure specifications. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid cloud adoption and the need for thorough impact assessment. Organizations often face pressure to deploy new services quickly to gain a competitive edge or meet business demands. However, neglecting to assess the potential impact on existing systems, security posture, compliance requirements, and operational stability can lead to significant unforeseen consequences, including service disruptions, data breaches, and regulatory noncompliance. Careful judgment is required to balance speed with due diligence. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured and comprehensive evaluation before making significant changes. By conducting a thorough impact assessment, an organization can proactively identify potential risks and dependencies. This allows for the development of mitigation strategies, informed decision-making regarding resource allocation, and the establishment of appropriate security controls and compliance measures. This aligns with the principles of responsible cloud architecture and governance, ensuring that the adoption of new Oracle Cloud Infrastructure services enhances, rather than compromises, the overall business objectives and risk profile. An incorrect approach that bypasses a formal impact assessment for speed fails to uphold professional responsibility. Specifically, it risks regulatory noncompliance by not evaluating how new services might affect adherence to data privacy laws, e.g., if sensitive data is involved and not adequately protected by the new service configuration or industry-specific regulations. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for potential negative consequences on users, customers, and the organization itself by not considering the broader implications of the change. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on technical feasibility without considering business and operational impacts is also professionally deficient. This overlooks critical aspects like user experience, cost-effectiveness, and integration with existing business processes, leading to solutions that may be technically sound but practically unviable or detrimental to business operations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the business drivers for the change. This is followed by a systematic impact assessment that covers technical, security, compliance, operational, and financial dimensions. Based on the assessment findings, risks are identified and prioritized, and mitigation plans are developed. This iterative process ensures that decisions are data-driven, aligned with organizational strategy, and adhere to relevant regulatory and ethical standards. Question 15. The investigation demonstrates that a critical business application hosted on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure is experiencing intermittent performance degradation, impacting user experience and productivity. Which of the following approaches best represents a professional and effective method for addressing this issue within the context of OCI architectural best practices? Option A. Immediately revert the most recent application deployment, assuming it is the cause of the performance degradation, and monitor for improvements. Option B. Seek immediate assistance from third-party cloud forums and communities to diagnose and resolve the performance issues without first utilizing OCI's native diagnostic tools. Option C. Focus solely on increasing the compute and storage resources allocated to the application's OCI resources to alleviate potential resource contention. Option D. Initiate a comprehensive impact assessment by analyzing OCI monitoring metrics, application logs, and recent deployment history to identify the root cause before implementing any remediation steps. The correct answer is D. Initiate a comprehensive impact assessment by analyzing OCI monitoring metrics, application logs, and recent deployment history to identify the root cause before implementing any remediation steps. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a scenario where a critical business application is experiencing intermittent performance degradation. This situation is professionally challenging because it directly impacts user productivity and potentially revenue, requiring a swift and accurate diagnosis without causing further disruption. The architect must balance the need for immediate resolution with the imperative to understand the root cause to prevent recurrence. The regulatory framework for the 1Z0-1072-22 exam, while not explicitly detailing specific financial or data privacy regulations for a particular jurisdiction, emphasizes best practices in cloud architecture design, security, and operational resilience. In this context, adherence to these principles is paramount. The correct approach involves a systematic impact assessment that prioritizes understanding the scope and severity of the performance issue before implementing any corrective actions. This includes analyzing application logs, monitoring infrastructure metrics within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, and correlating these with recent changes or events. This methodical approach ensures that any proposed solution addresses the actual problem and does not introduce new risks or unintended consequences. It aligns with the OCI architectural best practices of observability, reliability, and fault tolerance, which are implicitly guided by the need to maintain service integrity and meet business objectives. An incorrect approach would be to immediately revert recent configuration changes without a thorough analysis. This bypasses the critical step of understanding why the degradation occurred, potentially masking a deeper underlying issue or even causing a rollback of necessary updates. This failure to diagnose the root cause is a significant professional and operational lapse, as it hinders learning and improvement. Another incorrect approach is to solely focus on infrastructure scaling without investigating application-level bottlenecks. While scaling can sometimes alleviate performance issues, it is an inefficient and potentially costly solution if the problem lies within the application code or database queries. This demonstrates a lack of deep analysis and a superficial understanding of the system's behavior, which is contrary to the principles of robust cloud architecture. A third incorrect approach would be to consult external, non-OCI-specific forums for solutions without first leveraging OCI's native monitoring and diagnostic tools. This indicates a failure to utilize the platform's capabilities effectively and could lead to the adoption of solutions that are not optimized for the OCI environment, potentially introducing compatibility or security risks. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a structured approach. First, define the problem clearly. Second, gather relevant data from all available sources, OCI monitoring, logs, user reports. Third, hypothesize potential causes. Fourth, test hypotheses systematically. And finally, implement and validate the solution. This iterative process, grounded in understanding the OCI environment and its operational characteristics, is essential for effective problem solving and maintaining a resilient cloud infrastructure. Question 16. Upon reviewing the proposed migration of sensitive customer data to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, what is the most critical step an architect must take to ensure the security and compliance of the data within the new cloud environment? Option A. Assume that existing on-premises security policies and controls are sufficient for the OCI environment and can be directly applied without modification. Option B. Proceed with the migration after a brief review of OCI's general security features, deferring detailed compliance checks to post-migration operational phases. Option C. Prioritize the migration based solely on the potential cost savings offered by OCI services to maximize return on investment. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that identifies all data types, their sensitivity, associated regulatory requirements, and maps these to OCI security control and shared responsibility models. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that identifies all data types, their sensitivity, associated regulatory requirements, and maps these to OCI security controls and shared responsibility models. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent complexity of assessing the impact of cloud migration on an organization's existing security posture and compliance obligations. Architects must balance the benefits of cloud adoption with the risks of data exposure, unauthorized access, and non-compliance with Oracle Cloud infrastructure. OCI-specific security controls and potential regulatory frameworks that might govern the data being migrated. The need for a thorough impact assessment is paramount to ensure that the migration not only meets functional requirements, but also adheres to security best practices and any applicable legal or industry standards relevant to the data being handled within OCI. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it involves a systematic and comprehensive evaluation of all potential impacts. This includes identifying all data types, their sensitivity, and the regulatory requirements associated with them. By engaging stakeholders, performing detailed risk assessments, and developing a robust security and compliance plan before migration, the architect ensures that the OCI environment is configured to meet or exceed these requirements. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of security breaches, data loss, and regulatory penalties, aligning with the principle of security by design and responsible cloud governance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost savings without a commensurate evaluation of security and compliance risks is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a significant ethical lapse and a violation of professional duty to protect organizational assets and sensitive data. It could lead to severe regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and financial losses due to breaches or non-compliance. Another incorrect approach that neglects to involve legal and compliance teams in the impact assessment process is also professionally unsound. These teams possess the specialized knowledge required to interpret and apply relevant regulations to the cloud environment. Omitting their input creates a blind spot, increasing the risk of overlooking critical compliance requirements, which can result in legal repercussions and operational disruptions. A third incorrect approach that assumes existing on-premises security controls are directly transferable to OCI without reevaluation is a dangerous oversimplification. Cloud environments have different security models and shared responsibility paradigms. Failing to conduct a specific impact assessment for the OCI environment means that critical security gaps may go unnoticed, leaving the organization vulnerable. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adapt security strategies to the new technological landscape. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured, risk-based methodology. This begins with a clear understanding of the project's objectives and the data involved. Next, identify all relevant security and compliance requirements, consulting with legal, compliance, and security experts. Conduct a thorough impact assessment, mapping existing controls to OCI services and identifying any gaps. Develop a comprehensive migration plan that addresses these gaps, including security configurations, access controls, data encryption, and monitoring strategies. Finally, implement and continuously monitor the OCI environment to ensure ongoing compliance and security. Question 17. The assessment process reveals that a new Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI service, is being considered for deployment, which will process personally identifiable information, PI, for customer analytics. Which impact assessment approach best ensures compliance and data protection in this scenario? Option A. Prioritize a technical performance and cost-benefit analysis, assuming OCI's standard security measures are adequate for PII. Option B. Perform a limited impact assessment focusing only on the operational uptime and scalability of the new OCI service. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment focusing on data privacy, regulatory compliance, and security controls within the OCI environment. Option D. Rely solely on OCI's default security configurations without a specific assessment for the new service's data handling. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment focusing on data privacy, regulatory compliance, and security controls within the OCI environment. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a critical need to evaluate the impact of introducing a new Oracle Cloud Infrastructure OCI service that handles sensitive customer data. This scenario is professionally challenging because the architect must balance the benefits of innovation and service enhancement with the paramount responsibility of safeguarding data privacy and complying with relevant regulations. The architect's judgment is crucial in selecting an impact assessment approach that is both thorough and efficient, ensuring that potential risks are identified and mitigated before deployment. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that specifically considers data privacy implications, regulatory compliance, and security controls within the OCI environment. This aligns with best professional practices by proactively identifying potential risks to data confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It ensures that the proposed OCI service adheres to established data protection principles and any applicable regulatory frameworks governing data handling, such as those that might be relevant in a general cloud computing context where specific jurisdictional mandates are not provided, but general principles of data protection are assumed. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of breaches, regulatory penalties, and reputational damage. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the technical performance and cost-effectiveness of the new OCI service, without adequately assessing its impact on data privacy and regulatory compliance. This oversight represents a significant ethical failure, as it prioritizes operational efficiency over the fundamental right to data protection. Such an approach could lead to inadvertent noncompliance with data privacy laws, resulting in severe legal repercussions, fines, and loss of customer trust. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that OCI's built-in security features are sufficient without conducting a specific impact assessment for the new service. This assumption is dangerous, as it overlooks the unique data handling characteristics of the new service and the potential for misconfigurations or unforeseen vulnerabilities. This failure to conduct due diligence is professionally negligent and can expose the organization to substantial risks. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the data being handled, identifying applicable regulatory requirements, even in a general sense if no specific jurisdiction is provided, and then systematically evaluating the impact of the proposed OCI service on these aspects. This involves engaging with legal and compliance teams, performing risk assessments, and documenting all findings and mitigation strategies. Question 18. Examination of the data shows that a cloud architect is planning to introduce a new Oracle Cloud Infrastructure OCI service to enhance application performance. The proposed change involves integrating this new service with existing OCI compute and database resources. The architect is under pressure to deploy this solution quickly to meet a business deadline. What is the most appropriate approach to ensure the successful and compliant integration of this new OCI service? Option A. Focus solely on the technical configuration and deployment steps for the new OCI service, as the primary goal is performance enhancement. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the proposed OCI service integration against existing security policies, compliance requirements, operational stability, and cost implications. Option C. Proceed with the integration immediately to meet the business deadline, assuming that OCI services are inherently secure and compliant by default. Option D. Perform a quick, informal review of the new OCI services documentation and proceed with integration if no obvious issues are identified. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the proposed OCI service integration against existing security policies, compliance requirements, operational stability, and cost implications. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture. balancing the need for rapid deployment and innovation with the imperative to conduct thorough impact assessments before introducing significant changes. The professional challenge lies in identifying the appropriate level of detail and scope for an impact assessment when dealing with a complex, interconnected cloud environment like Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI. A rushed or incomplete assessment can lead to unforeseen consequences, including security vulnerabilities, performance degradation, compliance issues, or increased operational costs. The correct approach, which involves a comprehensive review of the proposed OCI service changes against existing infrastructure, security policies, and compliance requirements, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principles of responsible cloud adoption and governance. Specifically, within the context of OCI and general cloud best practices, a thorough impact assessment ensures that 1. Security posture is maintained. Changes are evaluated for potential security risks, ensuring that new configurations do not introduce vulnerabilities or weaken existing security controls. This is paramount in cloud environments where the attack surface can be dynamic. 2. Compliance requirements are met. The assessment verifies that the proposed changes do not violate any relevant regulations or industry standards that OCI services must adhere to. This includes data residency, privacy, and access control mandates. 3. Operational stability is ensured. The impact on performance, availability, and resource utilization is understood, preventing unexpected downtime or performance bottlenecks. 4. Cost implications are understood. Potential changes in service costs are identified and factored into budgeting and financial planning. An incorrect approach, such as proceeding with the changes without a formal assessment, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses established governance processes designed to protect the organization and its stakeholders. It can lead to security breaches due to unassessed vulnerabilities, noncompliance with data protection laws e.g., GDPR if applicable, though for this exam, we focus on general OCI principles and not specific regional laws unless explicitly stated. Service disruptions and reputational damage. Unforeseen cost overruns. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the technical feasibility of the OCI service change without considering its broader implications, is also professionally unacceptable. This narrow focus ignores critical aspects like security, compliance, and cost, which are integral to a holistic impact assessment. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the interconnectedness of cloud services and their business impact. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the scope and risk. Clearly define what is being changed and the potential risks associated with it. 2. Engaging stakeholders. Involve relevant teams, security, operations, compliance, finance, early in the process. 3. Utilizing OCI best practices and tools. Leverage OCI's built-in features and recommended architectural patterns for impact analysis. 4. Documenting findings and decisions. Maintain clear records of the assessment process, findings, and the rationale behind decisions. 5. Iterative assessment. For complex changes, consider an iterative approach where initial assessments inform subsequent, more detailed analyses. Question 19. Performance analysis shows a consistent increase in application response times for a critical customer-facing service hosted on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. The architecture includes compute instances, a database service, and load balancers. What is the most appropriate initial step to diagnose and address this issue? Option A. Examine OCI monitoring metrics for compute instances, database service, and load balancers to identify resource utilization patterns and potential bottlenecks, correlating these with recent changes or increased traffic. Option B. Initiate a cost optimization review to identify underutilized resources that can be provisioned to offset potential scaling costs. Option C. Consult with the application development team to implement code optimization without first verifying the underlying infrastructure performance. Option D. Immediately scale up the compute instances to the maximum available size to ensure sufficient capacity for the current workload. The correct answer is A. Examine OCI monitoring metrics for compute instances, database service, and load balancers to identify resource utilization patterns and potential bottlenecks, correlating these with recent changes or increased traffic. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud architecture. balancing performance optimization with cost management and adherence to service level agreements, SLAs. The professional challenge lies in interpreting performance metrics, understanding the underlying causes of degradation, and proposing solutions that are both effective and compliant with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI, best practices and potential contractual obligations. The architect must avoid making assumptions and instead rely on data-driven analysis and a structured approach to impact assessment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic impact assessment that begins with identifying the specific OCI services exhibiting performance degradation. This is followed by a deep dive into relevant metrics, e.g., latency, throughput, error rates, for those services and their dependencies. The architect must then correlate these metrics with recent changes or events within the OCI environment, such as deployments, configuration updates, or increased workload. Finally, proposing targeted solutions that address the root cause, considering their potential impact on cost, security, and other SLAs, represents best professional practice. This methodical process ensures that solutions are effective, efficient, and minimize unintended consequences, aligning with the principles of responsible cloud resource management and service delivery. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately assume a specific OCI service is the sole cause and proceed with a broad, potentially expensive scaling action without thorough investigation. This bypasses the critical impact assessment phase, leading to unnecessary expenditure and potentially failing to address the actual root cause if it lies elsewhere, e.g., application logic, network configuration outside OCI. This is professionally unacceptable as it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for cost efficiency, which are key considerations in cloud architecture. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on cost reduction by deprovisioning resources without understanding the performance implications. This directly violates the implicit or explicit SLAs that the OCI environment is designed to meet. Such an action would likely lead to further performance degradation and service disruption, causing significant business impact and reputational damage. Ethically and professionally, an architect must prioritize service availability and performance before cost optimization when performance issues are already evident. A third incorrect approach is to implement a quick fix based on anecdotal evidence or past experience without validating it against current performance data. This can lead to misdiagnosis and the application of ineffective solutions, wasting valuable time and resources. It also fails to establish a clear baseline for measuring the success of any intervention, making future troubleshooting more difficult. This approach lacks the rigor required for professional cloud architecture and can undermine confidence in the architect's judgment. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance issues by first establishing a clear understanding of the problem through data. This involves defining what performance degradation means in concrete terms, e.g., exceeding latency thresholds, reduced throughput. The next step is to gather relevant metrics from OCI monitoring tools and application logs. This data should then be analyzed to identify patterns, anomalies, and potential root causes. Once a hypothesis is formed, the architect should consider potential solutions, evaluating each based on its effectiveness, cost, complexity, and impact on other aspects of the system. This iterative process of monitoring, analysis, and targeted intervention, always with an eye on the overall impact, is crucial for effective cloud architecture. Question 20. The evaluation methodology shows a financial services company is migrating a critical trading platform to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI. The platform requires continuous availability, minimal data loss in case of failure, and strict adherence to U.S. financial regulatory compliance. The architect must design a disaster recovery strategy that ensures business continuity and meets these stringent requirements. Which OCI native disaster recovery strategy best addresses these needs? Option A. Implement a multi-region active-active deployment using OCI load balancing and OCI Data Guard for database replication. Option B. Utilize a hybrid cloud approach, replicating data to an on-premises data center and relying on OCI for primary compute. Option C. Deploy the application across multiple availability domains within a single OCI region and utilize OCI object storage for daily backups. Option D. Establish a single region deployment with OCI block volume snapshots stored in OCI object storage with manual recovery procedures. The correct answer is A. Implement a multi-region active-active deployment using OCI load balancing and OCI Data Guard for database replication. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a scenario where a cloud architect must design a highly available and resilient solution for a critical financial application. The professional challenge lies in balancing the stringent security and compliance requirements of the financial industry with the need for robust disaster recovery and business continuity capabilities, all within the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OCI) framework. The architect must consider not only technical feasibility, but also the regulatory landscape governing financial data and services in the United States. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a multi-region deployment strategy using OCI's robust disaster recovery services. This aligns with U.S. financial regulations that mandate resilience and the ability to recover from significant disruptions to ensure uninterrupted service and protect customer data. Specifically, it addresses requirements for data integrity, availability, and business continuity, which are paramount in the financial sector. Utilizing OCI's native DR capabilities, such as OCI Site-to-Site VPN for secure connectivity between regions and OCI block volume replication for data synchronization, provides a compliant and technically sound solution. This proactive design minimizes downtime and data loss, thereby upholding fiduciary responsibilities and regulatory adherence. An incorrect approach that relies solely on a single region with local backups fails to meet the high availability and disaster recovery mandates for critical financial systems. This poses a significant regulatory risk, as U.S. financial regulations often require a robust DR plan that accounts for catastrophic regional failures. Such a design would likely be deemed insufficient by auditors and regulators, leading to potential fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that proposes a multi-availability domain (AD) deployment within a single region, while offering high availability against hardware failures, does not adequately address disaster recovery from a regional outage. U.S. financial regulations typically expect resilience against larger-scale disruptions, including natural disasters or widespread infrastructure failures that could impact an entire region. Relying only on multi-AD would leave the application vulnerable to such events, violating the spirit and letter of compliance requirements. A further incorrect approach that suggests a hybrid cloud solution without a clear disaster recovery strategy across both on-premises and cloud environments introduces complexity and potential gaps in compliance. While hybrid solutions can be valid, the lack of a defined and tested DR plan that encompasses all critical components, especially for a financial application, is a significant regulatory and operational failure. It increases the risk of data loss or extended downtime during a disaster, which is unacceptable for financial services. The professional reasoning process for this scenario should involve a thorough understanding of the application's criticality, the specific regulatory requirements applicable to financial services in the U.S. e.g. SEC, FINRA guidelines, and the capabilities of OCI. The architect should engage with stakeholders to define recovery time objectives, RTO, and recovery point objectives, RPO, that meet compliance standards. The design should then be mapped against OCI services, prioritizing solutions that offer proven resilience and disaster recovery at a regional level. Regular testing and validation of the DR plan are also crucial components of professional practice to ensure its effectiveness and compliance.